.50 caliber bullets. And those exact same bullets are currently being loaded into rifles by Mexican cartels, literally to shoot down police helicopters.
It is, it's an incredibly jarring reality to confront, honestly, because it just completely upends that traditional narrative we hold about, national security and domestic defense spending.
Right.
And, I mean, how international supply chains actually function in the real world. It's wild.
It really is. And well, that is the mission for our deep dive today. We are unpacking this genuinely eye-opening investigative report from Vertex.
Which is just a phenomenal piece of reporting, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. It traces a supply chain pipeline that honestly most people have no idea even exists. We are talking about battlefield-grade, .5 caliber ammunition produced in U.S. government-owned facilities, making its way directly into the hands of the most heavily armed drug cartels on the planet.
Yeah.
So our goal today is to really track the mechanical journey of these rounds, from American production lines to cartel shootouts just south of the border, and, to examine the bureaucratic logic that actually allows this pipeline to operate in broad daylight.
It is a critical piece of the puzzle when we talk about border security.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, that conversation focuses heavily on what is flowing north into the United States.
Narcotics, illicit cash.
Exactly. Undocumented migration, all of that. But to actually understand the current tactical crisis, you have to look at what is flowing south.
Right.
The massive surge in cartel firepower over the last decade, it's not just materializing out of thin air. It has a specific point of origin, and the Vertex report makes it very clear that this origin is deeply entangled with domestic American procurement policies.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we look at the logistics of, how these bullets actually cross the border, we really need to clarify the sheer scale of the firepower we are talking about.
The physics of it, really.
Exactly. I think when the average person hears the word ammunition, they probably picture, like, a standard 9mm round used by a local police officer.
A standard handgun round.
Yeah. But a .50 caliber round is an entirely different technological proposition. I mean, sending Mexican state police to fight cartels armed with .50 caliber ammunition, it isn't just a tough assignment. It is like asking a neighborhood beat cop to stop a military invasion.
What's fascinating here is the absolute tactical paradigm shift this creates on the ground. A standard 9mm handgun round, like you just mentioned, that carries roughly, I think, 300 to 400 foot-pounds of kinetic energy.
Okay.
It is designed to stop a human threat.
How about
.50 caliber round, specifically the .50 BMG, carries upwards of 12 to 13,000 foot-pounds of energy.
Wait, 13,000?
Yeah, it's massive. It is half an inch wide. It often features a hardened steel penetrator core, and it was just never designed for civilian law enforcement engagements.
Right.
It is classified by militaries around the world as an anti-material round.
Anti-material, meaning its primary function is the destruction of equipment and infrastructure, right? Not just personnel.
Correct. These rounds were originally engineered to disable light armored vehicles, punch through reinforced concrete bunkers.
Wow.
Yeah, and even destroy sensitive equipment like radar dishes from literally over a mile away. So when a cartel equips its enforcers with Barrett sniper rifles or Browning machine guns firing this specific ammunition, they're completely bypassing the mechanics of civilian crime.
They're fighting a war.
Exactly. They're engaging in asymmetrical militarized warfare. I mean, for a Mexican state police officer, a standard patrol cruiser offers zero ballistic protection against a .50 caliber round.
None at all.
None. It'll pass right through the engine block, through the cabin, and out the trunk without significantly altering its trajectory.
That is terrifying.
It is. Standard Kevlar body armor is useless. Even the reinforced ballistic glass on a police armored personnel carrier will just shatter under concentrated fire from these weapons.
I think that brings up a detail from the report that is, well, it's almost hard to process. The Vertex investigation specifically highlights cartels using these weapons to shoot down helicopters.
Yes.
I mean, for a government fighting an insurgency or a massive organized crime syndicate, air support is supposed to be the ultimate asymmetrical advantage, right? You put a multi-million-dollar Black Hawk helicopter in the sky, and you effectively control the battle space.
Usually, yes.
But this ammunition neutralizes that advantage instantly.
It does, and we really need to look at the massive economic and tactical asymmetry at play there. You have a cartel enforcer firing a .50 caliber round that costs perhaps, $5 to $10 to manufacture.
Okay.
If that hardened steel penetrator strikes the rotor mast or the tail rotor gearbox of a state police helicopter, it induces a catastrophic mechanical failure.
So a $5 bullet just brought down a $20 million piece of state infrastructure.
Exactly. But tactically, it goes far beyond the loss of a single aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
By deploying these weapons, the cartels are establishing what military strategists call area denial.
Area denial. So they aren't just like engaging in shootouts, they are creating operational bubbles where the state physically cannot enter.
That's it. When the Mexican security forces know that the cartels possess helicopter downing capabilities, they can no longer safely deploy air support for reconnaissance or medical evacuation in that sector.
Because the risk is just too high.
Right. They can no longer hold standard roadblocks because their armored vehicles can be pierced from 1,000 yards away. It forces the legitimate government into a defensive, highly reactive posture.
They're essentially grounded.
They are. The cartels are actively establishing localized military superiority. They're carving out no-fly zones just miles from the U.S. border.
Wait, okay, if these rounds are this destructive and we know they are military-grade anti-material weapons, I mean, they shouldn't just be sitting on a shelf at a local hunting store.
You would think so.
Right. So how does a bullet forged for the U.S. Army even make it into a cartel safe house? Like, is someone hijacking military supply convoys? Are these being stolen directly off domestic military bases?
Well, that is the most alarming revelation in the Vertex report.
Yeah.
This is not the result of a massive heist or, black market theft.
Really?
No. It is the result of a perfectly legal domestic supply chain loophole. To understand how this works, we have to look at how the United States military procures its ammunition. The facilities we are talking about are known as GOCO plants. That's government-owned, contractor-operated.
GO. Okay, so the taxpayer owns the physical factory, the land, and all the machines inside. But a private defense contractor actually manages the workforce and runs the day-to-day production lines.
That is correct. Now, the military's demand for ammunition fluctuates wildly based on global events. During a major conflict, they need billions of rounds. During peacetime, demand plummets. But you cannot simply power down an ammunition plant like a light switch.
Because of the equipment.
The equipment, yes.
Yeah.
You have highly specialized machinery that degrades if it sits idle. And you also have a massive workforce of chemical engineers, metallurgists, specialized machinists. If you lay them off during peacetime, you cannot magically rehire them when a sudden crisis breaks out.
That makes sense.
So the military refers to this as maintaining surge capacity. They need the production lines to stay warm, so to speak.
I understand the industrial logic of keeping a factory operational. I really do. But who is buying the bullets if the military doesn't currently need them?
The government allows the private contractors running these facilities to produce ammunition far in excess of the military's actual needs.
Okay.
The contractor is then legally permitted to sell that excess production on the civilian commercial market.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. The revenue generated from those civilian sales helps offset the overhead costs of operating the plant, which, in turn, lowers the per-unit cost of the ammunition the military actually does buy.
Oh, wow.
So on a bureaucratic spreadsheet, it is touted as an incredibly efficient cost-saving measure.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because I am struggling to wrap my head around this cost savings argument.
It's definitely a leap.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a defense contractor, sure, overproducing makes your factory cheaper to run and boosts your bottom line. But if I am a bureaucrat in Washington, how can I legally justify authorizing the sale of anti-aircraft, anti-material ammunition to a civilian sporting goods store?
Right.
Treating .50 caliber rounds as surplus to offset costs, it's like a nuclear power plant selling off its spare uranium on Craigslist to help pay for the electric bill.
Okay.
You are balancing a spreadsheet by ignoring a massive catastrophic externality.
The Craigslist analogy is remarkably apt, actually.
Yeah.
Because it highlights the fundamental flaw in the policy. It's a total disregard for the end user.
Right.
The policy was written with the assumption that the civilian commercial market is a closed, secure loop. But once those .50 caliber rounds leave the GOCO plant and are sold to commercial distributors, they enter a vast, decentralized network.
Gun shows, online retailers.
Exactly. Online retailers, gun shows, private sellers across the entire United States. And for a cartel logistics officer, that decentralized market is incredibly easy to exploit.
So they're just leveraging our own commercial infrastructure against us.
Precisely.
How does the physical smuggling actually work, though? How does a pallet of military-grade ammo get from a U.S. distributor into a cartel armory in Sinaloa or Tamaulipas?
It relies heavily on a mechanism known as straw purchasing.
Okay.
The cartels do not send their own operatives to buy the ammunition directly. That would be too risky. Instead, they finance networks of U.S. citizens with completely clean criminal records.
So people who can pass a background check with no issue.
Exactly. These straw purchasers operate legally within the U.S. They visit multiple gun stores, or honestly, more commonly, they just buy the ammunition in massive bulk quantities through online commercial retailers.
Online, like they just add it to a digital cart.
Pretty much. Since there is very little federal tracking on the sheer volume of ammunition a single citizen can purchase, they can stockpile thousands of rounds of .50 caliber ammunition without triggering any immediate alarms.
And once they have stockpiled it in a warehouse or a drop house in a border state like Texas or Arizona, how do they get it south? I mean, we have this massive, heavily funded border security apparatus.
They utilize the sheer volume of daily cross-border traffic to mask their movements.
Okay.
Once the ammunition is at a drop house, the smugglers engage in a process called decanting.
Decanting, like with wine.
Sort of, but with bullets.
Yeah.
They take the ammunition out of its heavy, conspicuous military-style packaging, and they pack it into duffel bags, or they hide it within the natural voids of passenger vehicles.
Like inside the door panels.
Yeah. Exactly. Inside door panels, hollowed-out gas tanks, or spare tire compartments. They then just drive these normal civilian sedans and pickup trucks south through the ports of entry.
The irony is just suffocating here. We have billion-dollar infrastructure scanning commercial trucks coming north, using X-rays and drug-sniffing dogs to find narcotics.
Right.
But meanwhile, the passenger cars heading south are packed with military-grade ammunition, and they largely face a much lower level of scrutiny because, the historical focus has always been on incoming threats, not outgoing weaponry.
It reveals a severe structural blind spot. For decades, the political and law enforcement focus has been almost entirely on the product, the narcotics themselves.
Yeah.
But for the cartels, the drugs are merely the revenue stream. The weapons and the ammunition are the essential infrastructure that protects that revenue stream.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
By allowing military-grade .50 caliber ammunition to saturate the civilian market so freely, the United States domestic supply chain is essentially acting as the central procurement arm for the cartels. They don't need to build advanced manufacturing facilities down in Mexico.
They just exploit ours.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? I mean, as a taxpayer listening to this, you are effectively trapped on both sides of this ledger. Your income tax pays for the government-owned facility churning out the bullets.
Yes.
And then your tax dollars are also paying the budgets of Homeland Security, the DEA, and the Border Patrol, who are spending billions of dollars trying to contain the cartels that are armed with those exact same bullets.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a masterclass in bureaucratic siloing.
Bureaucratic siloing. Explain that.
You have different branches of the government operating with entirely distinct mandates, and they are completely blind to one another's impact. A procurement officer at the Department of Defense is evaluated on one specific metric. Did they maintain the readiness of the ammunition plant, and did they keep the unit cost of the ammunition down for the Army?
Right.
If commercial sales achieve that, the officer has successfully done their job according to the current regulations.
Right. Their mandate ends at the factory gate. They aren't graded on the geopolitical stability of North America.
Precisely. Meanwhile, you have the State Department, the DEA, and various intelligence agencies who view cartel violence as a top-tier national security threat.
Obviously.
The instability in Mexico drives irregular migration. It facilitates the flow of fentanyl into American communities, and it heavily destabilizes one of our most important trading partners.
Yeah.
The U.S. government spends vast fortunes supporting Mexican security initiatives. But because these agencies do not have jurisdiction over domestic ammunition production policies, the contradiction persists.
It is a devastating feedback loop. We are directly subsidizing the creation of the security crisis that we then have to spend exponentially more taxpayer money to manage.
It is entirely circular.
And it makes me question the very definition of the word efficiency when politicians talk about government operations. I mean, if saving a few cents on the dollar for a round of ammunition results in a cartel establishing a no-fly zone 50 miles from the Texas border, the math is fundamentally broken.
That is the core mechanical contradiction the Vertex report exposes so well. It forces a very uncomfortable reevaluation of what materials are deemed suitable for the commercial free market.
Yeah, no kidding.
When we are dealing with a .50 caliber anti-material round, treating it like, say, surplus office furniture to be liquidated for cost recovery.
Which is basically what they're doing.
Right. It is an oversight of massive proportions. A .50 caliber weapon is not used for standard home defense. It is not used for casual target practice. It has a singular, highly destructive utility.
Right.
The failure to align our internal procurement strategies with our external security realities has created a vulnerability that the cartels will absolutely continue to exploit because, from a logistics standpoint, it is highly reliable for them.
They are rational actors. If the pipeline is open and the product is high-quality military standard ammunition, they will keep running the straw purchasing networks until the loophole is officially closed.
Exactly. Until the friction between domestic cost-saving measures and international security is resolved, any attempt to stabilize the border region or dismantle cartel operational capacity is going to be fighting an incredibly difficult uphill battle.
An uphill battle against our own manufactured firepower.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, this has been an intense but, incredibly vital exploration of the Vertex investigation. Let's quickly recap the ground we have covered today.
Sure.
We started by breaking down the sheer kinetic reality of .50 caliber ammunition, how its anti-material capabilities instantly neutralize the armored vehicles and helicopters that state security forces rely on.
Which effectively allows cartels to establish those militarized no-fly zones.
Exactly. We then traced the mechanics of the GOCO loophole, exploring how government-owned plants overproduce these rounds for cost savings, dumping the excess into a civilian market that serves as a massive, unregulated catalog for cartel straw purchasing networks.
Right.
And finally, we looked at the broken ledger of the American taxpayer, who inadvertently funds both the manufacturing of the threat and the agencies tasked with fighting it.
It is a deeply complex issue, but, understanding the specific mechanics of this supply chain is a first necessary step in addressing the broader geopolitical crisis it creates.
It really is. And it leaves us with something that we all need to be thinking about the next time we hear arguments about streamlining government operations.
Absolutely.
If Washington continues to tout the cost savings of selling military-grade ammunition on the commercial market, we really have to ask, what is the true cost?
Yeah.
If a policy meant to save money on paper ends up arming a neighboring country's deadliest cartels, at what point do the geopolitical consequences bankrupt the initial savings entirely?
That is the essential question that policymakers have to confront moving forward.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the sources and for taking the time to really understand the mechanisms driving the headlines. Keep questioning the policies, keep looking at the bigger picture, and remember that sometimes most dangerous threats aren't sneaking across the border. They are being manufactured and sold right here at home, funded by the very pay stubs we started this conversation talking about. Until next time.